All right. Welcome to the Exercises Medicine Wellness webinar. We hold these webinars the first Tuesday of every month at 5 p.m. We're happy that you've joined us this evening. I do want to introduce to you tonight our guest speaker, Molly Linick. Molly's a dietitian with 23 years of experience in the nutrition world. She's worked in corporate settings as well as in private practice and has knowledge in sports nutrition, weight management, obesity, and behavior change. So Molly, I'll turn things over to you and let you share all of your knowledge about eating healthy in the holidays.
Well, thank you very much, Kelly. As Kelly had said, I'm Molly Linick. I'm the registered dietitian, and I want to keep referring only to 23 years of experience because that means I never get older. I've actually been doing this for longer because I've aged, unfortunately. So through this experience of many years of working with people and watching as trends have changed, one thing that has stayed the same is the holidays. Average Americans gain anywhere between 7 and 10 pounds during the holiday season. This doesn't seem like much. However, that weight ends up staying. At least.
Molly, can I interrupt? We're not seeing your slides.
Oh, you're not?
No, it just says loading.
Oh, okay. Let me retry. Nothing right now?
No, nothing sharing right now.
Okay, it says that it's sharing. Let me try again. My apologies. Technology is always so fun. Okay. And let me try it again. Share. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Oops. Okay, let me try to get this blown up now. Can you see it still?
Yes.
Okay. Oh no, every time I go to, okay, just give me a second. I apologize again, gracious.
Instead of like a slideshow, is that what you're trying to?
Yeah, it won't let me get into the slideshow. So
yeah,
I'm gonna,
that way.
What'd you say?
You can just go through it with it open that way.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that.
Oh.
Doesn't look nearly as pretty, but at least I can do it. Okay. You're able to see my screen now?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. So did you see this?
Now I do.
Okay, now let's start over. Americans, though, gain anywhere between 7 and 10 pounds each holiday season. It doesn't seem maybe like a lot since then we get on the bandwagon of the New Year resolution. However, there is an accumulative effect. About 3 to 5 pounds seem to stay on year after year. This gain and loss overall, that 7 to 10 pound shift, creates such stress on the body. And most of that weight ends up being gained in the visceral area or area around the organs, deep in the inner lining of our bodies. That in alone now puts stress on our organs. This graphics shows, you can kind of see the layering effect of 4 pounds from Thanksgiving in 2004, and then Christmas 2004, another layer of fat. And this perpetual cycle ends up creating more damage than just keeping steady or having a very small shift. More importantly, what it does for our psyche and how much we have to struggle to then continue our health journey. This year, I am hoping that we can take the strategies that I have set aside to introduce to you that will create more of a comprehensive way and a comprehensive approach that allows us to be in control, allowing us to decide what the future is going to look like. So we're not continually chasing our tail. So I always think that in order to really have the impact of anything that you read, anything that a professional talks about, is to have a personal stake in it. So I think it's important to step back and look at the end result. What do we want at the end of the holiday season, at the end of the party, at the end of the event? Looking at, December 31st and then January 1st, where do we want to be? Because once we see that, I really don't want to feel like I can only wear stretch pants, or I have to unbutton my pants in order to sit down. These kinds of feelings are uncomfortable, and we have an opportunity to make a change by embracing some of these strategies. So further than just the uncomfortable gaining weight, what about the journey that we're all on? We're getting way too old for most of us to continue this up and down, because I will share a secret that I had said right from the beginning. We're all getting old and our body just isn't as resilient. So we have an opportunity on this journey just to keep the status quo of our weight, continue to honor who we are, continue to take health as a priority in our lives, and to do some self-care along the way. So we need to have a game plan. And of course, a game plan can be for the event that you are going into. But the holiday isn't just one event. It is the whole time that we are in the holiday season that creates stress, creates an opportunity to eat more than we normally would, or maybe not exercise as much, or have those sweets that we normally wouldn't have, because all those weeks from it ends with Halloween, it starts with Thanksgiving and Christmas, and then a whopping New Year's of food and influences that take up our time. So I think the most important thing is to plan ahead every day. So how do I make sure that in those weeks, not just one event or not just a few scattered events, but in those weeks, how do I prioritize nutrition? Well, the very first thing we need to do is prioritize protein. Protein not only supports our immune system, which is invaluable right now with the cold and flu, and who knows if COVID's going to have a reinsurgence, but our immune system depends on a source of protein to make sure that we are creating the resistance that the antibodies, the ability to fight things off. Further, the protein that we take in our diet allows us to support our lean muscle tissue. And what does that mean? It means feeding the muscle at the muscle source. Now, that may not, you think of a big deal, but if we're really considering weight gain, weight loss, we are always in this catch up, because as we age, we just are always catching up. That metabolism is going to start to slip. So by maintaining our muscle mass, by maintaining and feeding our muscles, we create a higher output of energy all the time. The next thing that protein, and really prioritizing that over these next few weeks, is that protein in itself is very satisfying. It allows this feeling of satiety, but more importantly, it's almost one of those self-limiting macros. So it's just, you cannot eat too much protein. It creates this fullness, and it allows for us to self-regulate. One of the better things about protein is protein really likes to be protein, but in order for protein to be digested, it likes to burn up calories. And so protein has a thermogenic effect where you're actually burning calories while you're creating whatever it needs to do, as in creating muscle, as in even breaking down those proteins into small little optimizing amino acids that can help to support our brain, our specifically kind of stable out the mood. Often people have some depression, maybe some anxiety, or, we're seeing family that we haven't seen in a while. We're in situations that may not be as comfortable. Well, these amino acids that come only from protein allows for the neurotransmitters to be created and to be released in the brain. So the feel-good hormones that are created are absolutely essential, but also protein is necessary for them. How much? Because I always think that's the biggest question. And it's been one of those questions that I've been asked over and over. A really good rule of thumb is to take your body weight, half of your body weight, and whatever that is. So if it's 100 pounds, about 50 ounces or 50 grams, 50 grams of protein more than typically, but that would be an average. What I like to tell people is to get at least 80 grams of protein. The protein needs to be biologically available protein so that we can actually use it and it has those complete amino acids. To give you another example, that would be about 11 to 12 ounces. So how do we fit all that in? Well, every single meal that we have, even snacks, have to start off with that protein. The protein should be the first thing, and you build around that. It seems like meals, it's a little bit easier, but snacks are very viable and really good places to put these protein sources. Greek yogurt with some chopped nuts, grass-fed whey protein is an easy, quick way of getting it in. Adding collagen to tea or coffee, sipping on bone broth, a cup of that can have anywhere between 8 and 14 grams of really healthy protein at a very minimal amount of calories. Sticking in eggs, other just nut sources, edamame. Edamame is such a great way of quickly boiling it. You can get it easily at Trader Joe's. It's already been seeded, and you can add that into boiling water, let it cool, bag it up into Ziploc bags, and you can carry that as a snack. And it's simple and easy to pop in your mouth. Keeping cans of tuna and salmon on hand, even having chunk cheese. The cheese industry, prepackaged items, and I'm not a big fan of prepackaged, but I do understand convenience. So I know right now there are prepackaged cheese that aren't just, mozzarella and cheddar, but you can get anywhere from Gouda to Havarti cheeses, things that you normally wouldn't get that gives you that nice savory feel and a treat versus just mozzarella. Here are some ideas of protein in different types of food. So simply 2 eggs. Typically, we consider 1 egg as 7 grams of protein. 2 of those would be anywhere between 13.2 to 14.7, depending on how large the egg is. What an easy way, and it's very bioavailable, biologically available. The next thing that we need to focus in on every single day in order to get healthy through the holidays and make sure that we're thriving the whole time are adding colors. The more color that we can add to our plate and into our day, the better. I always like to suggest having 2 to 3 cups of green leafies. One thing is it slows our eating down. It's very difficult to put in a lot of green vegetables or green leafies and try to chew it. It will make you choke. So it slows people down. It also is low in calories, but so nutrient dense. One really good thing during this holiday season is adding those greens even to a quick protein shake. You're doing a couple different layering effects of not only the protein, but then adding in those greens. I like to encourage, protein first, filling that plate, and then half of the plate being those green leafies or the greens. Then you can take on something else. Next is color, like I had mentioned from the beginning. One thing I strive for with all of my clients is to encourage 5 different colors. That doesn't mean that you have to eat pounds and pounds. It means taking 3 different little tiny peppers, yellow, orange, and red. And now all of a sudden you have 3 colors. What the value of that in itself are the variation of antioxidants, these things that are like big bear hugs that protect your cells from oxidative damage. And in addition to just those colors, the texture and variety of some of our vegetables. So maybe I have those 3 peppers, but I also have asparagus, and then maybe I have some cauliflower. Now I have a difference in crunch and that savory flavor. And we need to see the food for what it is, and it should be beautiful. So color adds that oomph to something that we're eating. Things that we can try easily right now are the cauliflower rice variations instead of the regular rices. This creates a bountiful amount of nutrients, but also fiber, and it creates a volume at a low caloric intake. Roasted Brussels sprouts. Who doesn't like the roasted Brussels sprouts? Or even taking broccoli and roasting it in the oven just changes that flavor just enough to give it a pop versus just steaming plain vegetables. The next thing that we have to think about, and this has to be daily, is hydration. During the winter months, and especially during these holiday times, there are many things that we forget. And one of those things is drinking. So a rule of thumb is always at least 50% of your body weight in ounces of water. 120-pound person, 60 ounces. Well, that's great. But if I guzzle all my water right at the end of the day, I definitely won't be sleeping. So one of the things to do is to make sure that you get that water in first thing in the morning. And one rule of thumb, and one rule that I just simply follow, doesn't matter, it's simply a rule, is that drink a cup or the mug before you allow yourself the coffee in the morning. That way you've already started your water off by hydrating before you have your coffee. Next, a good rule of thumb is to try to get that water in at least half of the ounces that you need by the time 12 o'clock hits, or maybe by the time 1 o'clock hits, depending on what time you wake up. That way you are hedging the bets. You are getting that water in to help you in the long run, definitely with hunger, definitely with energy fatigue, because we often will feel a little bit dehydrated in the heat of different buildings and being under these fluorescent lights, not only just talking. The other thing that I recommend is keeping a record, because if you don't know, then you don't know. And if you have portable water containers, mark it. Know that I have to drink at least 2 of these. One I have to drink by 12 o'clock. The next one has to be done by 4 o'clock. This gives you something to accomplish, but it also will truly help you stay well hydrated reducing your temptation of even snacking, and fatigue and headache. One thing I also like is to add in decaffeinated herbal teas as a way of getting in that fluid. That is offering these big bear hugs around our cells, which, like I said, are these antioxidants, are these things that are herbs like rosemary and thyme, but you take that in all day, and you are protecting your cells from oxidative stress all day long, and you're getting in your water. The ability to drink something warm in the middle of the day, that's much more appealing in the wintertime than necessarily drinking cold water, if that's something that has inhibited you. The other thing is really savoring, or I'm challenging or channeling your savory palate. We often will go towards the sweet. And if we continually feed that sweet sensation, that craving of sweet, we end up continually craving that sweet, eliciting a feeling, eliciting that response in our brain to create more and more cravings. So savoring, or by channeling that savory, we keep our sweet carbohydrates in check. And the one really big thing that I want to address here is that we often will go towards these artificial sweeteners. So I'm not going to drink, soda, but I'm going to drink something with artificial sweeteners, no matter what, if it's a sugar alcohol, or I'm going to put saccharin or Equal or Splenda into my tea. Well, that creates other issues. And so let's not be naive to think that these sugars, these artificials, don't affect, because as this study is showing, these artificial sugars actually spike our blood. As you can see, the saccharin happens to be in blue. Glucose or sugar, like if you're doing a glucose test, is in this black. Notice that the spike in blood sugar is higher in the saccharin or some of these other artificial sweeteners like sucralose, aspartame, saccharin, all the things that we think we're having that gives us a feeling of sweetness that we think is innocent, but in reality, it can, and it does, spike our blood sugars, creating more havoc and creating more cravings. So by instead starting every meal with something that's savory, the first thing should never be something sweet. And that includes when we do go to parties. Adding in more herbs and spices to anything that we're eating. These spices and these herbs, things like, garlic, garlic, turmeric or curcumin, ginger, basil, thyme, all of these have such a powerful impact on protecting our cells, much different and much greater than the blueberry industry. Blueberries are wonderful. I love them. But in reality, these herbs have a higher amount of antioxidants or a bigger power boost than just the blueberries. So it's about getting it in, and it doesn't take much. Even taking regular water and adding in a sprig of rosemary and some slices of lemon, change that water into something that is flavorful but savory, a little bit acidic, but gives it a tang. So that's creating something different in our palate. But I really recommend sipping on our organic herbal teas throughout the day. Even when you think about savory, think about what you can even make or bring on a daily basis. What kind of snacks can you do? Instead of going to a fake protein bar that's coated with artificial sugars on the outside. Maybe it is a better choice to have roasted nuts, or having a little tiny charcuterie sampling kit where you put some cheese and maybe some nuts and a few pieces of arugula that creates a different palate in your mouth and a different sensation. We often will fill up on these empty calories of pretzels. Well, pretzels are going to be carbs, and carbs are going to create this up and down of our blood sugars. The next thing, and I think it's one of the really important parts that we don't want to minimize, is self-care. And self-care means getting in that exercise, taking 2-minute mental breaks, because during this time, there's so much pressure to do more, to see more, to say yes to everything, to wrap the presents perfectly, to make sure it's all done. That stress and anxiety creates some havoc in the brain, but also this craving to satisfy or elevate our moods, which will typically lead us into our carbohydrate, grabbing those simple snacks to create that energy lift, but it only becomes a vicious cycle with those ups and downs. The next thing is definitely getting outside and into the light. So much research has been done on how the circadian rhythms, or these patterns of our bodily functions, sleeping and eating, happen over a 24-hour period. And this internal clock actually releases certain hormones that affect how fat is metabolized, how our body even metabolizes, and how we maintain our body weight. And of course, sleep, because when we become exhausted, we make poor choices, and with poor choices come poor outcomes. So how do we do it? There's a trick. We need to look ahead. So laying it out and seeing it. Oops. And like I like to say, is to work it backwards. So in these weeks that I'm talking about, not just a hack that's going to take you into a party, which I'm going to get to, but how to maintain this during these weeks so that you have a better opportunity to manage. Well, number one is planning ahead and laying out an entire week, because you cannot go back and fix something, but you can go backwards and plan it in. So the lunch engagements, the rehearsals, band rehearsals, obligations, basketball practices, everything that has to happen. And then structure how you are going to be able to support what you want to do to create the best and successful, thriving you during this time. Then walk it to the end. So if you know that exercise is invaluable for your mental stability, and you decide to not exercise, or you have to play it in your brain, if I don't do it, then X. So a simple example, if I don't exercise today, if I don't do at least 20 minutes, then I know I'm going to feel sluggish all day and unmotivated, and I'll want to wear those stretch pants, and I'm likely to probably eat more. Well, if I exercise today, I'm going to be really proud of myself. I'm going to feel better about myself, and I'm going to have the energy to manage when things happen. So looking at that, how do you lay it out? You lay it out based on what is happening in your week. You cannot create and make a plan if you don't have the plan laid out. And so if you know that water intake, protein source, and movement have to be part of your morning routine, put it in, plan for it. The afternoon routine, put it in, plan for it. You know, simple things like set the alarm on Mondays for a mental break. Evening is a great time to get ready for the next day so that you can succeed. As this will show, the prepping for the next day of laying out your exercise clothes, if exercise is going to be in the morning, making sure you have your water in the bottle ready to go, making sure that you have a protein shake immediately so that when you are done, you're ready. These are the things that will create a morning routine that will lead you to success. Knowing that you have a evening holiday concert on Monday allows you to meal prep for that evening. But if you don't know, you don't know, and you are being guided by whatever happens. So keeping that is a forefront, laying it out and work backwards. Now, what happens when I do have to go to a holiday event, or if I am going to a work potluck? Well, these are really, really powerful, simple hacks. Number one, before you even walk into that event, if you're driving with your husband or you're coming down from your office, it is mandatory that you finish an entire bottle of water. That way you are already a little bit full, but more importantly, you're well hydrated. And the lack of a little bit of dehydration or lack of water can instantly make you think that you're hungrier than you are. Decide ahead of time, if there are alcoholic beverages there, are you going to drink? How many are you going to drink? And then hold fast to that. And the best thing is to start with a sparkling water before you start with alcohol. Drink that. Allow yourself some time to settle into this party. Then when the food or the buffet is ready, survey the food prior to putting it on your plate and prior to putting it in your mouth, because you don't know what is at the end and you need to have a good idea. Then start with that protein. Absolutely. Protein, and fill the other half with those green leafies. And that doesn't mean green leafies covered and smothered in dripping oils and mayonnaises. It means light, airy, using those herbs, using a light vinaigrette so you can actually taste that savoriness. Then what I see so often are people gobbling down the food and not slowing down and enjoying the food. When we are at a place, we want to get it in, but there's no rush. There's no rush to it, and food should be enjoyed and pleasurable. Then, after you have had that, and you have already surveyed the buffet or the food that is being presented for you, walk through it, see what you want. See those 2 or 3 items that are like non-negotiables. I want that because that is part of the holiday. That is my mom's pumpkin pie and I want that. Great, make that one of them. And then choose one more thing. Make sure that you're choosing things that aren't store-bought, but rather those yummy, homemade, brings back a memory kind of item. Aim, if you don't know what is going to be there, aim to share or bring something that is protein and savory forward, meaning simple things like deviled eggs, bringing hummus with some vegetables, a cheese plate, a charcuterie board, pesto with endive leaves, something that you know that you can go to. And then, for goodness sake, move away from the food. When our food and when you are standing there by the display or by the desserts, you are much more likely to go back. So move away, create a different area where you can have that conversation. And goodness gracious, don't bring it home. We do not need the temptation of bringing home all of those desserts. We can politely say no. And if there is something that you will be bringing home, Get it out of your sight of vision. Put it away in the freezer, put it away in the cabinet, because we only have a finite amount of willpower. And if we're using it up by walking past that same dessert 4 times every day, the 5th time is going to be the time you grab that cookie. So the one thing that I believe wholeheartedly is that in order to have success, we have to plan for it. And we don't just willy-nilly walk through it. So creating this preemptive ability to take control over what we are going to end with, the way we want to feel, and how we want to start the new year is in our control. Questions?